Hi, I was interested in finding out how fast my Tesla Model 3 could supercharge, and so last week I took it out to a newly expanded supercharger and tried it out. I recorded the full charging session, and once the charging starts, I sped up the video to 8 times normal speed. The full charge session takes a little over an hour, but normally most people would not charge to full, especially in a Model 3. After plugging in, the car talks to the supercharger, and they start to agree on how to charge, and then the charging starts in 3, 2, 1, and here we go. The charging starts slow, and then quickly ramps up. The flickering the video is because I'm changing the settings because I forgot to set the maximum charge to 100%, and I still had the HVAC on, so I turned that off. I'll be calling out stats that I find interesting, especially how it compares to earlier cars, and what we expect from DC fast charging going forward. I'll also talk about the charging setup, the particulars about this vehicle, and I'll use some technical jargon that I'll explain in a different video. Most people won't have to know this kind of jargon, they'll just plug in and let the car do its thing. And of course, if you don't know this jargon, there are plenty of online forums that are willing to help out. The charging rate quickly crosses 100 kW about 6 minutes into the charging session. That's at about 7% state of charge and after gaining 22 miles of range. 10% state of charge comes right up after 7 minutes and is charging at 109 kW. What is particularly impressive about the Model 3's charging, which is the peak rate, which is coming up very soon. And not only that, how long it holds that peak rate for an energy-dense chemistry. As with all battery chemistries, there's a series of trade-offs. And so to see one of the highest specific energy battery packs charge at this rate is quite good. And now, it's about to hit peak rate, 116 kW. I did see it flicker to 117 briefly, but it was so brief that we'll really call it 116. That's a charging C rate of 1.44. The Model 3 hits this rate at 17% state of charge, about 10 minutes into the charging session. And again, most impressive is how long it stays at 116. But first, a little bit about the setup. The conditions are nearly perfect for rapid supercharging, as there are a number of factors that affect the speed in which electric cars can charge at their fastest. First, the battery has to be warm enough and not too hot, and I've been driving the car for about 40 minutes before plugging in. Also, the outside temperature was in the mid 50 degrees Fahrenheit, which meant that the pack wasn't too cold, nor was it too hot. And the state of charge was very low as I pulled into the supercharger with only 2 miles of rated range left. Of course, most people wouldn't want to cut it that close, but I was doing this for science. Also, I was doing this with a new car with less than 500 miles on the odometer. Finally, I was doing this at a supercharger located in a shopping center that was essentially shut down for the night. That means it's unlikely for local grid usage to affect the results. Sometimes Tesla owners have seen slow supercharging, and in some places it seems to be related to the load put on by businesses in the area. I didn't want that to skew the results, so I came during a weeknight, pretty much when everyone had gone home. We're now finally dropping off the peak rate after 22 minutes of charging and at 46% state of charge, and about 30% of the charge was done at this peak rate. That's truly impressive, especially compared to, say, my 2013 Model S. And now we're coming up on another landmark. It's about to cross under 100 kW charging rate. Up until now, the only widely available production cars that could charge over 100 kW have been Teslas. Hopefully that will change soon. This Model 3 spent 25 minutes charging above 100 kW, going from 7% state of charge to 55% state of charge, and gaining 149 miles of range in the process. At this point, at around 180 miles of rated range, there's enough range to make most supercharger jumps in all sorts of weather. And since the Model 3 is so efficient, this comes up in less than half an hour of charging. Furthermore, the taper starts to really kick in now, and we're starting to reach the peak rates of some other cars like the Hyundai Ioniq and the Chevy Bolt. But of course, they have much smaller battery packs. It'll be interesting to see what charging rate the standard range Model 3 will have. Tesla may elect to have a higher charging C rate for the smaller pack. Maybe that's why the battery warranty is shorter in the standard range pack. Tesla has been changing the charging profile of their battery packs, emphasizing a broader, higher rate rather than a really high peak rate. Of course, for our owners, what matters is the area under the curve. How long do you have to really wait at a supercharger to go from one location to another. Unlike my Model S, I have to pay separately for this charging session. In Virginia, that's 13 cents a kilowatt hour, which is only 1 penny more than the residential flat rate for Virginia Dominion Power. This rate is not the same across the United States. In some places, due to existing laws, Tesla can't sell power by the kilowatt hour. Instead, they charge for time. And the idea is they charge roughly the same amount, just convert it to time instead. That means this full charging session should cost me somewhere around $10 to $11. That's under 4 cents a mile. Most DC fast charging networks right now charge more than it costs to drive a high mileage gasoline car. The Model 3 is now reaching 80% state of charge, still charging at 51 kW, and it's been 42 minutes. Since charging tapers dramatically after 80%, on road trips, you'd want to avoid waiting for charging above 80%. It's going to take almost as much time to charge from 80% to 100% as it took to charge from 0% to 70%. Obviously, if you have no choice, then you would have to wait. But hopefully, as DC fast charging gets built out in the next few years, it is less likely you'll have to do this. Also, with the proliferation of destination charging, hopefully you won't have to charge as much along the way. The new I-Pace should charge to 80% at roughly the same time, but that also highlights a different way of looking at this. How many miles do you gain in a certain amount of time? There are also cars coming up that should charge at much higher C rates, like the Porsche Mission E. It'll be interesting to see how energy dense that battery is and what trade-offs they made in order to be able to charge as fast as they're claiming. We're approaching the end of my narration of this charging session. You'll note if you scrub through the video that my maximum charge actually was 316 miles, not the 310 that was rated by Tesla for the EPA. Often, new batteries have a higher amount of charge capacity than rated, and that tends to drop off pretty quickly. And the cell degradation curve flattens out for quite a while. The maximum charge was 316 rated miles, and that took 1 hour and 26 minutes. I actually left before the charging session was done, was stuck at 316 for a really long time, and I suspect it was balancing the pack at the top of SoC. I hope this video has been informative for you, and hopefully we'll see a lot more electric cars coming soon.